Welcome back to Reps and Real Talk, a podcast where we dive into real conversations shaping strength and conditioning in basketball and everything else in between. Today, we're joined by a special guest, Safet Kastrat, assistant coach and general manager of LaSalle men's basketball. In this episode, we're pulling back the curtain on the current NIL landscape and the potential chaos it's created across college basketball and beyond. We're talking recruiting, retention, and evolving role of support staff, and yes, where the strength and conditioning coach fits into all of this. So from the locker room dynamics to athlete expectations and the shifting power structure in college athletics, this one's packed with some real insights from someone living it every single day. So stick around till the end of the episode to learn more about an emerging process that is definitely changing the scope of our field. Yo boss, how we doing? We're back for another episode.
Yo boss, we actually got a great guest on today. Actually our very first guest, my guy right here. So he's currently GM of LaSalle men's basketball / assistant coach. So my guy has a lot of responsibilities, very busy man. So we figured this is the perfect time to get him on the season. So, Safet, you want to just introduce yourself briefly and we'll kind of kick off the conversation from there?
Absolutely. First and foremost, Craig and Justin, appreciate you guys having me on. It's an honor. It's awesome that you guys are doing this, especially with social media and the power behind it. My name's Safet Kastrat, currently general manager, assistant coach here at LaSalle University for the men's basketball program. I've been in the business for about 10 years, graduated from Rider University years ago, started coaching at the Hun School of Princeton for the prep and boys varsity basketball team. I was at Hun for about 2 years. And then I got an opportunity to be on the staff at Rider University in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. Was there for a couple of years. Bounced down to Radford University in Radford, Virginia, where our current head coach is now the head coach at LaSalle. Left Radford for about a year and a half, close to 2 years. Came to LaSalle University to work under Fran Dunphy, where I worked alongside Justin Ray.
That's where we met, man.
That's it. That's where it all started, Jamaica. Coach Dump retired this past spring. They ran a full coaching search and, full circle. I think the sports world is very small but very big. And Coach Nichols, who I worked for at Radford, got the job here. And I was grateful enough for him to ask me to come back and be in this current role. And super excited, a lot of energy. We have a young coaching staff that's experienced. Great to work alongside Justin Ray. Craig, it's also good to see you again.
Great to see you, Safet. Yeah, it's great to have you on. And obviously, you two are working closely together. I had the pleasure of working with Justin back in the day, so I know how good he is as a teammate in that regard. Obviously, Safet, today we got you on because we want to talk a little bit about NIL, some of like the transfer portal stuff, the kind of scope and landscape of what's going on with college hoops. So within your role, maybe kick us off kind of how NIL is impacting what you're doing, your focus and things like that.
Yeah, Craig, it's a great question. So when I got here the first time at LaSalle, NIL was kind of just kickstarting a little bit. I think this year it's in full-fledged, full go. And for me, I was out the business for the last 6 months. And I think the biggest blessing and opportunity I was able to get was to be out of the mix of being a college basketball coach and talk to a lot of people who are now NIL agents or college coaches that were dealing with it from afar. Because when you're in the mix of being a college basketball coach, right, there's so much going on. You don't really get time to learn or view the landscape. So for me, the last 6 months was crucial. Jumping into this role now, it's been full go. I mean, you can ask Justin. We're in the same office, but for the last month and a half, I rarely saw him outside of a recruit, meeting Justin and speaking with him one-on-one about our strength and conditioning and nutrition program. But right now it's madness. There's no rules. There's no structure. The NCAA is trying to figure it out with the legislation. The main point is college student athletes are now getting paid, and they're getting paid a lot of money. They're getting paid more money than overseas players. They're getting paid more money than some lower tier, NBA two-way contracts, some lower tier NBA guys that are on contract. It's actually pretty crazy. And I think now more than ever, every single college student athlete is trying to stay in college longer than ever now than what it was before, right? People before didn't want to go to school. They just wanted to hoop They wanted to get their degree and they wanted to go overseas. Now it's the opposite. Like if you look at the landscape now on Twitter, all these kids with no eligibility are entering the transfer portal and trying to get an additional year of eligibility, and they've exhausted it. Everyone wants the big dollars, and it's great. It's awesome to see. There's got to be some structure to it, but it's been crazy. We've had to replace 12 guys, brought in 11 transfers, and everyone's got an agent. Everyone's got someone negotiating it. You're not talking about education anymore. You're talking about playing time and how much am I getting compensated on salary. It's the pros.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I've wrote it down over here, right? It's the paid non-professionals. So like you said, there's not really any structure to it, right? So I honestly don't really understand the landscape that well, and now I'm kind of out of the team setting a little bit. So like, Justin, I don't know if you've kind of got any insights in terms of how some of this is like affecting you, and then we can throw it back to Safet.
For sure. With this year, this is what me and Safet were kind of talking about earlier. It's like, this is that year, right, where NIL's kind of made the full burst. I feel like it's been growing, but now money has been crazy. And the payments that are given to college students at this point through almost, you're a pro at this early age. A lot of money's getting thrown out there. So regards to me, my current role, development's going to be a bit different now. Development, we think, as a linear progression over time. Skill starts to get a little bit more tweaked, right? Exercise selection probably grows in the program from there. The more simple to more difficult exercises are now being taught earlier, I think. So it's like now we're kind of, I don't even know if development's the word, but we got to rush these guys to be ready as soon as possible, because at any point in time, these guys can get their names called. And then if they average a certain number on the court, this dude has an opportunity to make a lot of money moving forward in the next year. So development's definitely going to be different now. And I think our programs have to adapt to those things. Do you have any insights, Craig, on like just being out of it now would be, how do we do that? Like what are some ideas where you would think, just being on a different scope now on the outside looking in?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm kind of thankful for not being in that mess, if I'm being honest, because it just sounds almost like a farming system in a sense, right? Because now we've got, take yourselves, there's no way you can compete financially with like a Texas, right? Power 5 school, blah, blah. So essentially, and I'm going to throw this one to Safet, how do you feel about like kind of the scope and landscape of that, especially in the recruiting scenarios? Because again, if you do get somebody who's an absolute hooper, you find the diamond in the rough, like you're only really probably going to get them for 1 year, because somebody's going to go and pay them double, triple what potentially you can pay them. So with it not being regulated, how could we potentially regulate that sort of thing to like allow these mid-major programs in a sense to still thrive in this landscape?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. Real quick, to your point earlier in your question, we had a kid who's from my neighborhood, Deuce Jones, right? He came here for essentially nothing. Had one great season, and it's not 1 year, it's 8 to 10 months, if we're being honest. 8 to 10 months, had a successful season, was Atlantic 10 Rookie of the Year, and ends up going in a transfer portal and gets a lot money. And it was impossible for us to retain him because of that, right? So here at LaSalle, we know who we are. We're going to go recruit people that fit us and fit our budget. And we know that if they have a great season in the Atlantic 10, we're probably going to lose them to schools in our league with a lot more financial resources, or to a Texas, to a Duke, to a Kentucky. How do we regulate it? The NCAA has got to take full control. They need to say there's going to be cap space for every league, every team. Every team's going to have this amount of money, and this team can spend this amount of money on a team. The problem is right now is because there's no rules, the rich get richer. So, the Daytons, the VCUs in our league are the cream of the crop, where, we're improving, we're getting better. We're not going to make any excuses. But because there's no cap, there's an uneven playing field with who you can recruit. And it's happening from all different levels. The schools that are hurting the most are the low major schools. So the Wagners of the world, the Riders of the world. Not to say those schools don't have any money, not to pick those schools out, but those kids that they recruit go there for no money and they lose them 8 to 10 months, and then they have to re-recruit an entire brand new team for no money, essentially. While other schools in their league at the top may have money that could compete with the Atlantic 10. So right now it's all over the place. Really comes down to who your alumni are, and do those alumni support and believe in NIL? And the schools that have the most success are the schools that have the best alumni base, and an alumni base that really care about their football or basketball teams being really, really good, because now it's become your best rosters in recruiting are those that you can pay players with in high salary figures. I'll give you this one too, Craig and Jay. Now for head coaching jobs, people are getting jobs with way less experience because people they're connected to are unbelievably rich, and they're buying and petitioning their personal candidates for these jobs. It's happened this offseason where certain guys have bought jobs because their father or their uncle or a relative or a close friend is a millionaire or billionaire, and they're going to the school and athletic director and saying, hey, if you hire so-and-so, we're going to donate $10 million to your NIL, and then we're going to donate $5 million to the school. And the lower level schools that are hurting financially, how can you say no? So experience is out the window. Credentials are out the window. Do you have money? Can you pay? Because it's all over the place. The only way for it to be regulated is the NCAA and the government in this country need to regulate it immediately. And I think putting a cap space on every league to make it an even playing field will help.
Has there been any discussion of that or anything within the NCAA? I know there's like the lawsuit for like the previous athletes and stuff like that getting paid, which is kind of putting a squeeze on some of these schools, so they might not have as much money. But like, what's kind of being done right now? Is there anything being actioned with that?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things going on behind the scenes with the government, the NCAA. There was an article that Nick Saban met with President Trump about regulating NIL. I think Trump was, listening to what Saban had to say. Will he take action immediately? How will he respond? No one knows. But there's a lot of different discussions because coaches are getting worn out by this. Parents are being more delusional than ever. It's just so unstable. If this continues and it doesn't get regulated, there will be Power Fives, and then I wouldn't even call them Division I teams. I would just say it's Power Fives and other colleges, universities, because without it being regulated, schools are not going to be able to survive financially. People get donor fatigue, and I think the government is looking into it now because it's become a big topic. It's become a hot topic. The NCAA, I think, is working towards something, but nothing's been done as of today or in recent timing. But I think a lot of people are hoping for that to happen. But there are some whispers and conversations going on behind the scenes. The NCAA and the government keep it close to the vest until a final decision's made.
So, Safet, this is for you. For mid-major schools, right? Because we can't compete with like the Texas, like Craig just mentioned, where do we go? So in recruiting, like we have to go different avenues besides money, right? We have to have a little bit of money, but what else are we kind of doing? Where do we, generally speaking, that you would mind sharing to the listeners here? Like, even it's a two-part question, that, and then performance coaches, if we're not at these Power Five schools, social media presence kind of has to be relevant at this point, right? Like people have to start to at least to know you. Like, would you agree with that? And then answer the previous question.
I agree with that. I'll say this. A lot of people are deflecting around the concept that relationships don't matter anymore because it's just about money. I disagree. Because here at LaSalle, with our roster, we got a majority of our players because of close relationships and trust. Does financial situations matter? Yes, they have with our roster. But our relationships dominated the dollar figures and a lot of guys we recruited, where a lot of our guys could have went elsewhere and gotten a lot more money. But can you trust that place you're going to? Can you trust that you'll get all that money? Will you play? Those things still matter. The problem is because of social media, right, Jay? And I agree with you, especially for people like yourself and Craig in your roles. The relationships, social media matter because the problem is everyone is promoting how much money the top guys are getting at the Power 5 level, and it's getting blasted all over social media. But what people forget is there's still a million other schools that are not Power 5 that don't have those financial situations. Relationships do still matter. because not everyone can go get $1 million a year. Not everyone can go get $2 million a year. Not everyone can go get 500,000 a year. Not everyone can go get $250,000 a year. So those relationships still matter. I think for performance coaches, social media matters. I say this all the time in men's basketball specifically, because I haven't coached any other sport. The strength and conditioning coach is the number one most important person in the program. I genuinely believe that. I'm not saying this because this is your guys' space and realm, but coaches are always going to have a coaching staff to coach, recruit, etc. But if you have a terrible strength and conditioning coach, you have a terrible nutritionist, you have a terrible athletic trainer, your program cannot function. It's really simple. I can go for hours into why, hows, and what, but the strength and conditioning coach is the most important. You guys would be surprised. We recruited 12 new players, one kid we retained, one student athlete, and every single person we recruited asked about our strength and conditioning and nutritionist, who's Justin Ray. Who is he? What's his background? How often does he work with the guys? Does he watch what my son eats? You would be surprised. Like, it's not always all NIL. It's a dominant part in recruiting, but everyone has brought up who the strength and conditioning coach is. And that's the person that is on the coaching staff, that has the players' ears, that keeps our players healthy. That you have to be strong, you have to be mobile, you have to be agile to be a good basketball player. And if you don't have a good strength and conditioning coach, you're not going to win games. It's proven.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's a good point. And I just want to jump in there because like something that stuck out is like value, right? Like you said, like not everybody's going to get that 250K. And I think sometimes leveling the expectations of those guys, like I've worked with players in the past that like truly believe that like they're that guy, right? And it's like having come from the NBA, it's like, no, like they are that guy. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes you have to have those realistic conversations as well. Like, hey, you are not valued at 250K. Like you might be valued at 50K, whatever it is. And I think like the other side of that thing is like some of our listeners obviously will be S&C coaches, is like finding value within ourselves. So a question just to piggyback off the back of that is, how do you think that like a S&C coach can be valuable in that recruiting process? I know you kind of talked a little bit about it, but if it's like a newer person getting into the field, stuff like that, from your coaching perspective, like what are the things that knock it out of the park in terms of in that recruiting meeting that an S&C coach can do?
I'll say this, and this is on the record for anyone that's watching. I believe Justin Ray is a high major strength and conditioning coach, if not an MBA at the highest level.
I would validate that as well, for sure.
And I'll say why, Craig. Obviously, I'm biased working with him, but for me, all you guys go through the certification process, all you guys know what you're doing, right? But the relationship aspect is so important. Being able to relate with these student athletes is so important. And I think if anyone is getting in this field in your guys' realm, you have to learn to be a people person, right? And you can be socially awkward naturally, but you can work towards being relatable. You can study psychology. You can listen to podcasts of people from different cultures, religions, be open-minded, learn and grow, because this is the reality. Justin Ray can give the best exercises, the best nutrition plan, etc. But if his message isn't delivered to those student athletes, it's all a waste. And because those student athletes trust Justin Ray, they look at him as more than just a strength and conditioning coach. When he says something, he commands his presence and everyone listens. We're working out with Justin Ray as a coaching staff because of Justin's ability to relate with us. He's on our coaching staff. He's us, we're him. And the thing that makes Justin so good is that he can relate to others. He's not screaming and yelling all of the time. He's got a high level of emotional intelligence. He knows who can trigger and who cannot be triggered by certain psychological methods in coaching. Right? You can't yell at everyone, or sometimes you have to pull someone to the side and talk to them one-on-one because they might feel embarrassed if you yell at them in a team setting. I think Justin's feel is very, very elite. And anyone that wants to get in his field, I think needs to understand that, right? Because no matter what we do, coaching, nutrition, etc., if you cannot relate to people, you have 0% chance in this profession.
Yeah. And just to add on that, I think also learn from coaches like Justin, like who are grinding, like potentially don't have the biggest presence online, right? But still can offer like a lot of value. Similar to myself, I don't have a huge presence, but like probably could teach a thing or two to some younger coaches getting into the field in terms of managing some relationships and stuff like that. So Kind of like on that same pathway in terms of the kind of scope of NIL, we kind of mentioned about we need regulation and stuff. So trajectory, like 5 years from now, right? Like where do we see like NIL going? Because my kind of opinion is like I come from obviously England. Some of the listeners already probably know that, but like England and football and soccer, right? Like there's the transfer like window, and then you pay other organizations to have the assets. So do you think that potentially with regulations, there's kind of almost like a fee swap sort of thing? So like you open up a cap space because the other organization takes it, or like you actually get some of the money, like a transfer fee? Like what would that look like? Do you think that's a possibility in kind of NCAA?
Craig, I love this question. This is my favorite one because what's happening, my parents are from the Balkans, right? Montenegro, Albania, Kosovo, right? And a lot of my friends in coaching that are from there or still coaching overseas or coaching at universities. And I have friends that have coached at universities that have recruited international kids that were with professional teams. And because those kids had contracts, universities had to pay a buyout to get them to come to America, right? So with international kids, that won't change, especially if they're tied to the top clubs in Spain or the top clubs in Serbia or wherever else in the country. That won't change. But I think we can take some of that and bring it here to where like if a student athlete is with you for a year, I think what people are starting to do is put buyouts on contracts. So if you come to the University of Tennessee, right, and you sign in March of 2025, and a couple months later, you get poached by Mississippi State, right, there should be a buyout on the contract. And I think some schools are actually doing that because last year there were student athletes that signed to a university in April or May and then left in July because another school had $300,000 more. And it's unfair to the school that originally signed you because by July, it's already too late to get another quality um, player. So I think we need to take what they're doing over there in Europe and other countries at the professional level and bring it here because it is college athletics, but it's become professional sports right now. And I think we need to take a lot of what the NBA, the Euro League, and other, entities are doing and bringing some of those concepts here because if you pour all this time into one student athlete and it doesn't work out, how does that go? I'll give you another one. When you're an overseas basketball player, and you guys know this because you guys have worked with a lot of pros, I've personally had guys I've coached, they've gone over to Europe and they've gotten cut 3 weeks into their deal. They're paying you to show up on time. They're paying you to eat well. They're paying you to practice. They're paying you to play. And if you don't oblige, they'll cut you and send you back home. That's 100% something that we need to implement in this NIL space because what's happening now, Greg, and I can go on and on with different topics within this question.
Keep going, keep going.
It's great.
This is my biggest issue because it's unregulated and there's so much power in the hands of parents, agents, and players. The players think that they're doing you a favor and they have full control. So the accountability piece, because you can't technically cut somebody from your team as easy as you can at the professional level, it's going to make it really difficult because now at the university level, I've heard stories last year when I was out the business that locker rooms were disrupted because player A was making this much, player B was making this much, player Z was making this much, and they were communicating about it behind the scenes. And like anything else, we all think we're better than what we are, right? So it causes so much disruption at the pro level. This is what it is. If we're paying you to come show up on time. If you don't, you're gone. You're out. You're not here. You're not with us. I think that's 100% what should happen at the college level. The problem is because it's still an educational institution, it's very difficult to do that. But because of the dollars and cents that's coming from these donors, these alumni, it's not fair to coaches because these are young men, these are kids. But because they have so much control with the money, it's hard to hold people accountable. And what is great at the professional level is a lot of these players are grown men and they understand that, hey, if I go sign a deal in Brazil, I need to show up. I need to be on time. I need to be in the best tip-top shape of my life, or I can't feed my family. We need more of that at the college level. How do we do that? I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure because when I was out the business for the last 6 months, so many teams with a lot of financial resources had those issues within their teams.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I guess like a quick, just follow up on that one that was just popping in my mind. Do you think that like like a high school athlete who's now coming into college, freshman, they're getting paid, like they haven't developed any habits, but they could be getting these like salaries, like you said, that are more than a G League contract, more than a pro overseas contract. So it's like, are we reinforcing bad habits now by like paying basically unproven? We're like taking a gamble in a sense, like especially the coaching staff. Like, hey, yeah, you're hoping you recruited a good guy, but you're paying for like non-professional habits. So is that gonna like you think have a cascade effect when these guys do turn to pros, where they might not be in the league very long, kind of thing, if they do get these professional contacts because they're just not used to the grind that people used to have to do? And that can be both for Yusuf and Justin in a sense.
Yeah, I'll answer real quick and then whatever thoughts Justin has. So there are high school kids getting paid a lot of money, more than transfers. It's a huge issue because they're high school kids. They're young. We were all in high school at one point, right? And we all needed some grooming. The problem with that is those top level kids that are getting paid ridiculous amounts of money coming out of high school, those kids a lot of them have been pampered their whole life because they've been ranked in the top 100 rankings or the top 50 or top 25. And because so many people want to get involved with a kid's life, they don't give them any structure, like you said. There's no discipline. They don't know what it's like because everyone's telling them they're amazing. It's like the one beautiful girl, you're chasing after. You're going to tell her all positive things, right? So then she won't ever hear like the truth, the reality. And once they do, they don't want to hear it. It's the same thing with these kids. They're being told you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then once they come to college and you're trying to hold them accountable, it's a wake-up call. But to pay those guys that much money before even entering a college practice, it's amazing to me.
Now, go ahead.
It's amazing. No, it's amazing. It's just, and even some high school kids are getting money before they touch campus.
Which is wild.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
That's insane. And think about how we grew up, right? Like where you took any entry level job and it's entry level, right? So if we could maybe get to a point where, if you're a freshman coming in, like this is your standardized salary, quote unquote, right? And maybe you sign a 2-year deal. Now we have like a contract. But within that, since you're just a freshman, regardless of your talent level, because you didn't play a single minute in the Atlantic 10, hypothetically speaking, right? Could we just give them incentives, right? So if you become the rookie of the year in the A10, then you get this big signing bonus. But you're still a freshman, so you get that freshman dollar, right? And then maybe you progress as a sophomore, and then you get like an X percentage increase, like a normal person who works at a 9-to-5 salary job or and what we do now is like, can we just standardize the level of experience and then incentivize the skill and, the outcomes that come with it, but still have it under a contract? Maybe something like that could potentially happen because it's affecting everything, right? You got a guy that's getting paid a ton of money, maybe more than myself, right? It comes in here as a freshman that didn't learn anything, right? Or doesn't understand what it takes to be a Division I college. We're Atlantic 10's in the top 10 in the nation in rankings, right? Roughly. And there's a standard that comes with that. Right? Over time, you're freshman, you're going to naturally grow. But I just think that they need this experience. I mean, when I was 19, 20 years old, I wish I knew what I knew now. Somebody was helping me grow into that, And I think we need more of that. I think that'll alleviate the unexpectedness of like how guys are now reacting to certain ways of being coached, right? So I think it could standardize things to a certain extent. And granted, if you're in this top 10 in the nation or whatever the case is, maybe your incentive's a little higher, but you're still making the same amount as the freshman. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Something's got to come out.
I agree. I agree. It's all over the place. And it's, the whole high school freshman or the whole high school to college freshman transition. I mean, Listen, this weekend's a recruiting weekend, and because of the transfer portal, there won't be as many college coaches out recruiting as there was 4 years ago, right? Because to recruit a high school freshman where you have this budget to go get grown men, why would you do that? It's the same. I'm going to flip onto another issue within this issue. The college kids that eventually get a salary, a ridiculous amount of salary, reality hits once their eligibility is exhausted in college, because then they got to go to Brazil or they got to go to Greece for $40,000 and survive, right? Again, there's a lot we can take from outside the country and implement it here. Like overseas, you start off with 40 grand if you're not a top guy, and you earn and grow your salary as you continue to play better and perform. It's the same deal in the coaching profession, right? You got to take a volunteer job. You might make $20,000 for 5 years and then get your break, right? So I think we need to take a lot of what's going on outside the country with those professional teams and implement the same system where everyone gets something, but it's incentive performance based, just how it is overseas.
I think that's an interesting point as well, because I was like just scrolling a couple of notes here, and this year was the lowest ever number of players that declared for the NBA draft.
Wow.
So, and that's, I'm guessing, aligned with what you're saying in terms of, hey, I can probably make a little bit, actually a lot more money by just staying in college and arguing for that extra year of eligibility. Or some guys, maybe now the one and done is going to only really be like if you're a top 10 draft pick kind of thing. Like, and that typically is generally a thing, but some people have the dreams, right? So the 1 year freshman and they think they could probably declare. But yeah, apparently the lowest ever number of athletes that have declared for the draft this year.
I did not know that. That's very interesting, and I 100% have belief that it has to directly correlate with that.
100%. It has to, because this year was the highest year for the transfer portal.
Correct. In NIL, in dollars paid, in the amount of student athletes in the portal. Yeah, it directly correlates.
Listen, I think if there's no cap on this, if this continues to become what it is, at some point the institution should hire a financial advisor for these programs, because we're not educating anybody. It's just like these kids are getting a ton of money, right? More money than they'll probably ever see, maybe in their lifetime, right? Whoever's listening, don't take that to heart. But at this point in time, there's a lot of money being thrown out there, and a lot of money that is not financially stable to be able to do this over a long period of time, right? This is a short amount of time, a ton of money being. So I think education in that process may help our youth that are typically all the guys that are younger than us, right? Are experiencing all this money up front. So a little bit of education, just my point of view, would be just to hire somebody, and maybe they have to go through that process. Like when we took a loan out to go to college, we had to do this. So the loan, what's it called, Craig? What am I thinking of?
Like your financial advisor, your loan advisor?
Yeah, you have to complete some type of interview process.
To take a loan out and get approved for.
Exactly.
Yeah, the bank or whatever.
Right. So maybe you have to, like, you're signing off to make this contract. Maybe you have to sign off on, like, you've gone through the education along with this process to accept all this, and this is how I've been educated on how to save my money and use my money in the correct way. That's all I was.
Absolutely.
I have one question for you. Like you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but now with like the NIL and obviously trying to compete and stuff like that, are you changing your coaching style in any way where it's like you have to adapt to these situations because you know that you're probably going to lose a guy who's good in one season sort of thing? Like, how does that look?
Yeah, you have to. It's adapt or die. You have to coach a student athlete way different today than you did 2 years ago, than you did 4 years ago, than you did 20 years ago. I think the thing I love about our coaching staff is we're very open to this transfer portal, to this era, and we're totally fine with knowing that player A is coming in and leaving 8 to 9 months, and we're going to give him the best 8 to 9 months. We're going to be positive. We're going to encourage him. We're going to hold him accountable. We're going to, even though it's difficult to develop, we're going to develop them as best as we can within the next 8 to 9 months, and in the hope of winning a championship, winning as many games possible. And we know that is going to move on to a Georgetown, to a Maryland. And then we look at it as if we do right by that kid, we'll get the next kid to fill in his shoes. And people will begin to say, hey, my son might not be an SEC player, but sending him to LaSalle in the Atlantic 10 because those guys do a great job of being a farm system to the SEC, to the ACC. It builds a system of trust. I say it all the time. I was out recruiting the other week and I saw a couple high major coaches and I said, listen, if you guys want us to be your unofficial, official G League team, just let me know because we already know what's coming with our guys and we're open to it. So
Absolutely. Now, in my realm, I think to answer your question, Craig, would be, I think every offseason is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be some tweaks here, but I think getting guys that you haven't seen, for instance, our whole team is brand new, right? Except for we have one returner. The quicker they can get on campus, maybe start classes like summer one, half the group of the guys come in at that time, would be easier for me to start getting to know them more, right? Bringing them in the weight room more. Like they'll be able to voluntarily work out with me, and we'll give those opportunities. And I think the more time you could spend with these individuals, the better off you'll be. Off seasons now technically will feel longer. Granted, most basketball programs have 8 weeks to deal with, right? The NCAA, Safet, I might be wrong on that, but like we get 8 weeks with the guys that are not voluntary, like they must be there. And then for me, the earlier they can get on campus, I think is the best form of communication. You could see how they move. You could take time with your testing. You could rap with the guys more, eat with the guys, lift with them. Anytime you could spend more time, I think that's organized, that you set yourself up for a little bit of success than if everybody comes all in one shot and it's just a lot of guys all at one time, right? It's probably even worse in football because the teams are much larger. But for in our case, right, you're getting 14 incrementally coming on campus, I think is the ideal best case scenario. And I'm kind of looking forward to that. It's just going to feel, the off seasons are going to feel like you never took a break. But I mean, if that allots to winning, then I'll shut my mouth, So looking forward to it. So I think every year is going to be a little bit different, little tweaks here and there, and what the head coach wants, and kind of work in reverse from there.
So my last question here, because obviously now I kind of interact with multiple different organizations, multiple different teams in terms of like their technology, and like we have people on our team that are sales focused, and a lot of times they'll ask me, hey, what do you know about this team's budget and things like that. So like the kind of extended areas, is all the money now funneling towards just the athletes? How does that look, Safet and Justin, in terms of for the program essentials, nutrition budget, travel, all those things? Obviously certain teams pay other teams to go and play them, right? And things like that. But how is all that coming together in terms of the impact of the global budget? And then kind of a follow-on-ish part of that, is that going to have a trickle-down effect on some of these smaller sports where we might see programs that were D1? I think there was an example recently, I forget which college it was now, where they become D2, D3 because they just can't compete at that level. They can't financially support their athletes, kind of thing.
Correct. Yeah. Hartford, I believe a couple years ago was Division 1, went Division 3, and then St. Francis, PA, I believe, is now going Division 3. Yeah, so it's funny. There's been certain schools at the Big East, high major and lower to major levels that have gotten new arenas, correct, including LaSalle. And the conversation I've had with certain people is, this is the issue. A new arena is always needed, no matter what university you're at, right? Because facilities need to be improved, resources need to be improved, etc., right? A lot of people are saying, hey, was it worth it to pour $50 million in a new arena where we could have just took that money for NIL? Because, people believe the notion that players don't care about facilities. They just want bigger contracts. So if you could tell a kid, hey, I'll pay you $500,000, but we're going to play in a gym that looks like a barn versus, hey, come here for $50,000 and play in an NBA arena.
Yeah,
right?
Facilities matter for sure.
So there's constant debates about that. I'm a person of balance. I think you need a good nutrition program and a good support staff, good academic advisors, good strength and conditioning coaches, good athletic trainers, good equipment, nutrition plans, having training table after practices. Those things still matter. I just think that NIL overs all of this, unfortunately, because we don't have jobs. If there's there's no basketball players involved, right? There's no team put together. There's no individuals we can work with. So everyone is always gonna, whatever benefits the student athletes the most is gonna overrule everything. And right now it's NIL. So I think student athlete, I think it defers away and deflects away from the overall budget because of how much money a player can make, and that's more important to the player, right? As it is with us, right? How much we make is important for our families to support them and live our lives. So it's the same concept. But I think it's more difficult now to get someone to say, hey, can you donate to our overall budget? Hey, can you donate to NIL? You get donor fatigue. So you have to figure out what you're trying to prioritize and balance it, because you do need both, in my opinion. It's just however you manage and deal with it. Everyone's different.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off that, Craig, it's just I do think schools overall are going to be, regardless of your budget, you're going to be spending more every year. Because this year, think about it, we had 13 new guys coming. Also, we have coaches on the road recruiting. And then when the visits happen on campus, we're spending money for lunch, dinners, breakfast, all these added little short, small pieces of income that we're spending add up. And I think every year we're probably going to have to keep growing it every year. Like I know for us, I don't mind sharing. It's just I'm going to have to probably up our thing by $1,000, at least for nutrition, supplementation, equipment, updates, right? Just getting the current equipment fixed, make sure everything is working correctly. And I'm all about balance as well too. But with this place, it's unique. So little by little, you have to pour in the money where it's most prioritized, which is our players, right? And the student athletes. But then after a while, like you have to start to build up the facilities a bit, right? Making sure the equipment's at least new or correctly usable, right? At this point, some of the stuff has been very, very old and hasn't been refurbished or anything of that nature. So I think just staying current, up to date, and doing the best as we can, and then just finding other ways to save and I think travel a bit. Maybe that'll happen this year for us, but we'll still stay at a nicer hotel. Like we're still given some nice qualities here. And granted, like training table is a great thing to have. We're lucky to have those things in schools who can't feed their athletes adequately, right? And they're still making the tournament. So like, what are we doing wrong? Maybe it's all wrong, but I do think every year you're going to spend a little bit more money until things start to get regulated.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll finish up on this one. Is the NCAA doomed, or is this like the future kind of thing?
For our sake, I hope that it's not doomed, right? Because then I'll be working at Walmart. Justin Ray will be working at the South Philly Auto Body. Right? But, I think this is the future. I genuinely believe that. It's here. It's not going to change. Rules and regulations will be adapted for it to be feasible. But this is the future. It's not going back to what it was. It's here. It'll adjust and adapt in different ways with regulations and whatnot. But this is the future. This is the future of college athletics. And we've made NIL what it is. It's been something that people have complained about for a long time, and the NCAA finally allowed it. And now it's gotten so out of control, I think they need to pull back in, but they will, because they have to. They got no choice. They have to. And it's here to stay. We just got to do the best job as coaches, as parents, as student athletes, as agents, as athletic directors, as presidents, to really, really have that emotional intelligence and understand that this is the realm we're in. The different student athletes are going to get paid different salary levels. Let's just be honest. Let's not hide from that. The players need to understand that, right? I wanted to be an NBA player, but I wasn't. I'm coaching college basketball. I'm super grateful. It is what it is, right? There's guys in the NBA that are getting more than other guys. There are guys in the G League that are moving up and getting two-way deals, and guys that aren't. It is what it is. There are guys that have to go to Brazil and make $40,000, $50,000 to start off to go make $100. It is what it is. I think we need to be upfront about it, honest, and just adapt and regulate it a bit. But yeah, this is the future.
I got one more question before we end. Do we see more positions like yourself, Fet? Like, is your role now going to grow, and now teams are going to get bigger?
This offseason, there have been a lot of general manager hires. Virginia Tech just hired one. NC State just hired one. LaSalle just hired one. Davidson just hired one. St. John's had one 2 years ago. They got ahead of the 8 ball. And I think they were one of the first schools to do it. And they've had a lot of success. They went to the NCAA tournament. They went on to the second round for the first time in forever. They won the Big East regular season title for the first time in like 20 to 30 years. Because they were ahead of their times, even though it was recent times. Next year, you'll see even more general managers hired. So it's going to continue to grow. Every program needs one now. And it's crazy to say that there are general managers now in college basketball, but we're professional teams now too. So
exactly, for sure. You want to wrap us up, and then where can people find you or get in touch with you? Where do you feel is like the best? What do you feel like sharing?
Absolutely. On Twitter and Instagram. On my Twitter is at Safet Kastrat, at SAFET KASTRAT, no spaces, just all together. On Instagram is s.kastrat, my last name, s.kastrat. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. If you want to connect, chat, you can DM me. I'm an open book. Always willing to conversate with people. People have poured into me early on in my career, and I think none of us can forget where we started. So it's our job as coaches, because we got in this to impact people. We need to be able to pay it forward. So whoever, feel free to reach out. Always want to conversate and talk. And I'm trying to learn and grow every day. So I'm always open to learning from whomever.
Appreciate that.
I would definitely recommend people reaching out to you as well, because I think as an S&C, like I've been out of it a little bit, understanding the scope of NIL and the coach's perspective and things like that is really important, especially if a team doesn't have that GM type position. Like we said, it's a new field now in the sense, like those things will only grow with time. So definitely take advantage of that. I'll sign us off. So appreciate everybody listening in. If you made it this far, it was a great conversation with Safet here and Justin. And so Safet, we appreciate you dearly for coming on, because this is an area that in strength and conditioning, I don't think a lot of coaches truly know the impacts. Like we kind of see the headlines, we don't really know the news in the sense. So we really appreciate you going into some of that stuff, and hopefully gives value back to the listeners. And so you can find us at Reps and Real Talk on Instagram. Make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribing, make sure you're sharing. Safet, make sure you're throwing it up on your channels as well. We'll give you a little shout out on ours. And we will see you all in the next episode.
Peace.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, gents.
Appreciate it.